Hey everyone. Thank you for watching the Andrew Ramon Show. Thank you for listening. Either way, welcome back to another episode. Can you guys believe it? We're like in our 7th season. To be honest with you, I've just been doing like every 10 episodes is one season, so it hasn't been like super specific to the seasons. I don't know. Tell me what season you like the most. If you're like, wow, there were seasons to this show. There were, technically speaking, like an Apple podcast. You can divide it into seasons. And today we are in the middle of season 7, I believe. So don't drop a show in the middle of a season. Just don't do it. But obviously you're dedicated. You're listening right now. You're watching. I just want to thank you for that. Hey, don't forget to support the podcast by subscribing, by following, by rating, and then by sharing. That's one of the biggest ways. One of the biggest ways for this podcast to get out to more people is for you to share an episode with one person who hasn't heard it yet. That's right. It's that easy. You can just forward it, for the actual episode, for the YouTube link or something like that, to an episode that you really liked. And if you didn't like it, obviously, let me know. I hope that there's always something that you can take away. One of my goals in an episode is to give practical, it's not advice, because like I said, I don't necessarily speak from a place like I know everything, but it's things that I'm working on in my personal life that I do think it can help you, because you and I were not that much different. Sure, we have different lives and we've had different experiences, but we're both human. So I think what helps me might have a good chance of helping you. Recently, I've been reading a book, which I'm going to reference to in just a second, about the great one and only Billy Graham. I've spoken about Billy Graham in several episodes ago. It has to be like season 2 or season 3. When I spoke about him, I spoke a little bit about his influence on my life, but someone that I follow on Instagram actually showed a picture of this book and kind of recommended it, so I went ahead and bought it. And I can't tell you, I'm not done with the book yet, but there are so many lessons from Billy Graham that I've just been so convicted of and encouraged to apply in my own life that I wanted to share with you. So these are 3 life lessons from Billy Graham that you can apply to you. So the book itself is called Leadership Secret, the Leadership Secrets of Billy Graham. And I'll show it to you right here if you're watching on video. It is by authors Harold Myra and Marshall Shelley. It's a fantastic book, very, very easy read, and it has so many lessons. When they interviewed Billy Graham, they interviewed people who knew Billy Graham, who reporters, newsletters, and everything, to actually put together what were his leadership lessons. And I think it's very applicable for our mug of the show. Again, a word from our sponsors is I actually got to go to the Billy Graham library. I'm bringing this mug out from the archives over here. I showed this very, very early in the show, but I want all of our new listeners to see this as well. It is from the Billy Graham Library in North Carolina. If you haven't had a chance to go and you're in North Carolina, check it out. It is so impactful. One of the reasons that I've been so impacted by this man's ministry is, what did a man who, just a farm boy from North Carolina, what happened that he became one of the most influential men of the 20th century? What happened with him? What was so special about him? And actually, this book that I just recommended, The Leadership Secrets of Billy Graham, kind of delves into that topic, into that question of what made Billy Graham. Is Billy Graham just a freak of nature that would only happen once every 100 years and no one else could really model their lives after? Or were there principles in his life that actually guided him and took him on the way of success? So that's exactly what I want to talk to you about. Now, there's a reason in this episode that I said 3 life lessons, because although this is more like leadership lessons for your personal life and also for your company, I think that sometimes when we hear leadership lessons, we sometimes we step away from that because many of us don't consider ourselves leaders. Right? A leader is either a manager at your job, or maybe a youth pastor or a pastor, someone with an official quote unquote leader title. But you are a leader. I don't know if you knew that, but everyone leadership is influence. That's what it's kind of what I think it's John Maxwell who says that leadership is influence. So every single one of us has influence. Actually, statistically speaking, every one of us influences thousands of people throughout our lives. So even if you're one of the most secluded people, you will have some type of influence on somebody. So I thought about just titling it 3 Leadership Lessons from Billy Graham, but we're going to title it 3 Life Lessons from Billy Graham, because these are actually some of the chapters in this book that I want you to derive and apply into our own lives. 3 things that Billy Graham did in his own life, in his association, because the Billy Graham Evangelical Association, that brought great success to them, but we can also apply it to our lives. So if you're listening and maybe you're younger and you've just never heard of Billy Graham, look him up, read some of his books, read his autobiography, but just see the videos. I mean, this man, Billy Graham, again, is a North Carolina farm boy who grew up and spoke in front of millions of crowds. And not only did he have a crowd of millions, but he also had friendship with presidents and world leaders. What type of man is this? We know one of the few and only men in relative recent history that's had so much influence as Billy Graham. And not only for the gospel, but also in terms of leadership and bringing hope to the world. So what made this man? And I think that is the first lesson. The first lesson is to ignite your life. That's right. What do I mean by that? To ignite your life. What can you do to start your life? That means that word ignite. Have you ever ignited like a fire? Right? It is whenever, I don't actually know the chemical, substances of what actually ignites a fire. But it's whenever you it's la palabra en español, you guys know I speak Spanish, so la palabra en español son chispas. What are those, sparks? I think it is. When you're trying to make a fire, you're trying to make a spark and then it catches flame. Billy Graham caught flame per se. He ignited his life, he blew up, and he just skyrocketed in times of success. But when we think about our average day lives, I don't know you, but I ain't no Billy Graham. I feel like I'm just kind of living my life and there's no huge igniting of my life. And maybe you feel the same way. You might feel that your life is kind of monotonous, kind of mediocre. But I don't believe that is the lives that we're meant to live. I think that all of us have purpose. Maybe all of us are not destined to be another Billy Graham, known by millions, known by presidents and great leaders. Probably not. But all of us are called to influence. All of us are called to be great leaders. So what can ignite our leadership? What can ignite our lives to a life of influence? And there's 2 things. And this goes to Billy Graham. There is a passion for your purpose and a humility. I'm going to say it again. It is passion for your purpose in deep humility. You see, Billy Graham had an unwavering passion for his purpose. His purpose to spread the good news. It is said, and the authors in this book said that true leadership is cultivated and is made in the furnace. It is made in the fire. It is made in the low moments, in the valleys. Even Billy Graham said that, right? The mountains and the hills are great for small moments of success, but the fruit is in the valley, he says. And a lot of us, maybe you've not had such a tragic life or had a lot of obstacles in your life. But one of the things that helps us become great leaders is to even use things that are hard in our lives, to use those for our advantage and to grow a passion for our purpose. Because when you have passion for a purpose, when you have a dead focus on what your purpose is on this life, then that will help to ignite your future. So what do I mean by that? Because you're thinking, purpose, these are all very big words and ambiguous. But think about your own life right now. I'll kind of make myself as an example of that. A lot of times when pastors or anybody says, live your purpose, it sounds ambiguous. We don't really know what the heck they're talking about, especially when we say, God has great plans for you. It's like, well, great. Can you tell me what plans he's got? Because I'm a little bit lost. Anybody feel that way before? I know I felt that way before. So whenever I talk about purpose, the first thing to understand is that God, in fact, has a purpose for you. Because sometimes we think, well, I don't know about purpose. I'm just kind of living my life. I think life maybe doesn't have an end goal. It's just kind of accidental and you just make the best out of it. Not really. Not with God. With God, you actually have a design purpose. In the letter to the Philippians, Paul actually tells us that we have a high calling. That's kind of a synonymous word for purpose. I guess people will divide it and see the differences. But in general, basically it means it's very similar. You have a high purpose. You have a high calling of God. Remember, a calling is the same way than someone's calling you. You have to answer it. So maybe you've been living your life kind of accidentally. With whatever opportunities come, then you just take them and you don't really have a trajectory and aim in your life. And it kind of is boring. Not only boring, but many times it can be depressing. Well, I'm here just to tell you that you actually do have a purpose in your life. You actually have a very specific calling to you. One of the main purposes that we all have, if you're wondering, is to know God and to make him known. So if you're lost and you feel like you have no purpose or anything like that, well, here's your purpose, is to know God and to make God known. We're all going to have a little bit of a different calling in how we're going to make God known. A lot of us can be like Billy Graham. I feel like that calling in the sense that I want to be like an evangelist. I want to share the good news to multiple crowds, whether it be one or whether it be 1,000,000 or 1,000. But maybe you're not called to stand in front of people on the stage in the stadium. But maybe you are called to show who God is and who Jesus is in your workplace, as a doctor, as the typical examples go, as a lawyer, as a finance guy, as a teacher, as a gym instructor. I don't know what your passions are, but the important thing is to find a passion for your purpose. And unfortunately, our culture has us so distracted with very superficial things that like money and fame and likes and posts and all this, that those don't actually go into our purpose. Your purpose is found in the closet. What do I mean by that? It is when Jesus said, go into the secret, close the door, and pray to your Father who is in secret. That's right. That's where your purpose is found. So before we go any further into different life lessons, I think a lot of us might need to spend a little bit more time with God, with the purpose giver, in order to understand what our purpose is. You know, I had one of those moments. I remember it must have been 5-6 years ago when I was lying down in my bed getting ready to sleep. And I was asking God, what is my purpose? You know, if you've been listening to this podcast, you know I like to ask big questions. I just like to go deep almost right away. So I do that even when I'm praying. I'm like, God, where's my purpose? I don't know how old I was. It had to be like 5 years ago or something like that. And I was like, God, what is my purpose? And in that moment, I opened up scripture. It's like one of these examples where they're like, you know, and I opened randomly a verse in the Bible and it was exactly what I was talking about. Like literally, that was it for me. I opened the Bible and I think it was in Luke. I have to look up Luke up. I'm sorry. I just caught that pun. That was a really good one. Anyways, I had to look up the reference in a second, but I saw a story whenever Jesus calls the disciple Andrew. And Andrew then brings Peter to Jesus. Right. And I found it not only because my name is Andrew, although that's awesome as well, but I found it so strong, my calling, that I'm supposed to bring other people to Jesus. And you're saying, yeah, Andrew, well, everyone is. Of course, but some people are more specific to like, that is what they what they pour their lives into. And that's how I feel. This is why I'm doing my podcast, is that everything I tell you is not just to make you smarter, because I don't want to make you a smarter person, yet not a closer follower of Jesus. My goal, everything I say only makes sense within the context and within the framework of a relationship with Jesus. So the first thing to ignite your life, it is passion. It is passion for your purpose. If you feel like you are living a life without passion, I encourage you, go back, pray, and receive that purpose from God that He has called you to. The second element of igniting your life, it is humility. It's so important because a lot of us can have so much passion for our purpose that we think it is the best purpose in the world, and we think that no one else has a better purpose than us. Well, all right, slow down your horses, cowboy. It's not like that. That's not how it works. No one's better than the other person. And sadly, with a world of social media, you know, we can have a problem with a lack of humility, because humility is not just also feeling good about yourself and feeling better than others, but it's also being envious of others. That's pride. That's the opposite of humility. Pride, a lot of times we think, well, I'm not prideful. You know, I'm not like, haughty and above everyone else. But if you have envy, you're also proud because you believe that you deserve what other people have. Ouch. I just listened to a preaching by Joyce Meyer about that. So that's why it was fresh on my mind when I said that. So we have to have humility. You know, think about Billy Graham. There's so many examples of unwavering humility that he had, even amongst the most pride susceptible moments. I mean, think about it. This man knows the presidents. This man has presidents on his cell phone, basically. He's Billy Graham, yet he still had the humility to know people by name, to address people properly, not to think that he was better than anybody else. Man, I'm no Billy Graham. And if he was humble, I think I can be too. I'll be honest with you. I've said this before in the podcast. A lot of times I dealt with self-righteousness. And thankfully, God has dealt with that area of my life. And that came because growing up in church, well, you grow up as a pastor's son, and you kind of think that you're just better. I don't know. Maybe it was just me, so I apologize. I'm not saying that other people were prideful too. But, I didn't think I was necessarily, quote unquote, better than people, but I did think that I had closer access to God because I was just in church all the time. And God really he hit me with a brick, and he said, hey, reality check, you're ain't closer to me than anybody else. It is Jesus who brings you closer, not just serving the God or not just acting good or anything like that. So I've had my own share of problems with pride. And one of the things that always encourages me with humility is what C.S. Lewis says. You see, humility is not humiliation. That's not it. But humility is, he says it so wonderfully. He says, humility is not thinking of yourself less, but it's thinking less of yourself. Wait, I think I said it opposite. Humility is not, oh yeah, wait a second. I think I totally said it opposite. Some people are like, wait, I'm supposed to be humble and I'm supposed to think less of myself? No. Humility is not thinking less of yourself, is thinking of yourself less. There you go. That fit a little bit better. So that's exactly it. It's not devaluing your value. It's not thinking that you're worse off than everybody else, but it's in fact thinking of yourself less, thinking more of other people, putting other people in front of you. And if you honestly feel like, man, humility is something you might struggle with, then I encourage you to take a moment and say, okay, God, humiliate me is a harsh prayer. I don't know if I'd pray that, but give me opportunities to be humble. And you'd be surprised when you pray that God would give you opportunities to be humble. Don't like skip a beat, that God is going to, all of a sudden people are going to come to you and they're going to say, this is amazing. I just got this and God answered my prayer. And that's exactly what you've been wanting. But now this is your time to be humble and not prideful and actually thankful and celebrate other people. Yeah, that's exactly right. So if you want to ignite your life, you have to have passion and you have to have humility to support that. The second thing is about forming your team. Billy Graham could not have been Billy Graham without his team. He had such a powerful, powerful team. And the way that he formed them was through friendship, but also with wisdom. It was important who he surrounded himself with. These people he surrounded himself with were no just any mere person. They were experienced, either preachers or worship leaders or other leaders or businessmen. And he understood that he is not better by himself. He is better with a pack. We're not lone wolf. We're sheep. We are supposed to be with a herd. That's how we're meant. That's how we're meant to be. That's how God created us. So with your life, the second way that we can ignite your life, that's one thing. But the second thing that we have to do in our life is we have to form our team. That's right. Who is around you right now that's encouraging you, that is giving you life? Who can you trust? Jesus had 12. How many do you have? A lot of us, we can't even count one or two because so much we've secluded ourselves. I always tell people this. You're not meant to live life alone. If being alone worked, then solitary confinement would not be a punishment. But solitary confinement is a punishment because it drives you crazy. So why would we live a self-imposed solitary confinement life and not live that life with others, and not have people that you trust? I'm not just saying having 100 superficial friends. No, I'm saying you don't have to have 5 or 10, but do you have friends that you can count on? Do you have people that are pushing you forward, or do you have people that are lower at your level and they're always going for mediocre standards? That's not who you're meant to be. You're meant to be with other people that are also igniting their life, that are also passionate about their purpose, that are also humble, and you guys can come together and you can encourage yourself. Maybe you're listening to this and you're like, dang, I needed to hear that, because the people you surround yourself with are dragging you down. Don't worry, God has a message for them and God wants to bring them up as well. But maybe for some of us, it's time we cut off a little bit of a friendship. Doesn't mean throw them away and never talk to them again. No, not at all. But who is investing daily in your life? Who are you chatting with all the time? Are they really investing or are they taking away from you? And the last thing that is one of the lessons. So one we looked at is igniting your life through passion and humility. And then the other one is forming your team. John Maxwell said something great. Who you are is who you attract. So if all you're attracting is people who are dragging you down, man, I don't know where you are. Be encouraged, because if you make decisions to better your crowd, meaning better your surroundings, it's going to be better. There's a verse that I only know it in Spanish that says, Las malas compañías corrompan el alma. That's right. It's basically bad company corrupts the soul. So don't think that you are immune to bad company, because you're not. The last thing, and I want to start ending with this, was they had a manifesto. I'm not talking about the Communist Manifesto. Okay, that thing's evil. No. I'm not talking about that. But they had a way to stand against temptations, because you can have a great purpose. You can be humble. And you can have a great team, but if you don't have a plan to stand against temptations that want to derail you of life, whether that be addictions, whether that be something like sexual immorality, which we've spoken in this, or even pride itself, if you don't have some guides, then you're going to be derailed. Billy Graham in his campaign and his ministry is one of the very few very big church ministries that have gone this long without any controversies, any moral failures, any financial failures, or anything like that. We all know the televangelists that have handled money badly. We all know the big pastor that had an infidelity. We all know that. And we all know even family members, or if not family members, friends that they had a falling. But it doesn't have to be the same with you. It doesn't have to be the same with me. When we ignite our lives, when we have a team around us, we have to make what Billy Graham made the Modesto Manifesto. And what that was is they were in Modesto, I think it was California, when they all got together in a hotel room and they said, guys, we're getting big. God is doing something with us, but we cannot repeat the same mistakes that other people repeated. We cannot have moral failures. We cannot have lack of financial integrity. We cannot make fun of other pastors and put other people down that are doing the same work than us. We cannot do that. So they came together and they made this Modesto Manifesto, which stated that they would, for example, they would never be alone with any woman that's not their wife. Period. No misunderstandings, nothing. They would be 1,000 feet from any misunderstanding whatsoever. Or that they would handle money correctly, and they would have a board, that they would not speak badly about anybody else who's doing the same ministry. And they had some other principles. What is your manifesto? What are your principles in your life? Because when you don't have principles, when you don't have values in your life, it doesn't matter how passionate you are about your purpose, you will get derailed. And in fact, you're going to just become a hypocrite. And there's nothing worse than a hypocrite. There's nothing worse that turns people off than someone who says something and lives a different way. That's what turns off sometimes people from church, because they see someone who's a hypocrite and say, I don't want that. But that doesn't have to be you, and that doesn't have to be me. I believe that the lessons from Billy Graham has given us some lessons and principles for us to apply. If you don't feel like you have a purpose, go back into your prayer time, receive that purpose from God, act in humility, have a team around you that not only protects you, but encourages you and pushes you forward. And have a manifesto, have values that you're not going to compromise. You're just not going to. I'm not going to compromise on my purity. I'm not going to compromise on my integrity. Because Billy Graham said it the best. When wealth is lost, nothing's lost. When health is lost, something's lost. But when character is lost, everything is lost. We'll see you in the next episode of The Andrew Ramon Show.